Today we're going to be talking about how you can find your next Airbnb VRBO short-term rental property without the use of paid tools. Now this is one of those videos where I basically give away a free tutorial. So if you could hit that like button for me, I would be forever grateful. Now the method I'm going to talk about today is exactly how I found and closed on my first short-term rental property. And that short-term rental is now making me anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 each and every month. So when I say that this works, it truly does. Now I've broken this into a 4-step process. Of course, there are lots of other pieces of this that I won't be able to fit in this video, but I'm hoping that this will give you a good summary of exactly what you need to think about when you're looking for that first short-term rental. So step 1 is evaluating your market. Now the way that I do this and how I found my first rental was basically look for national parks or vacation spots that are close to me. Now this is going to bring up a lot of markets that have a lot of traffic and a lot of people moving through them. So in today's example, we're gonna go over to Pigeon Forge, which is a super popular kind of mountainous cabin area that's about 5 hours away from me in Atlanta. And the first step in this process is going over to airdna.com and creating a free account. Now, once you've done that, you actually get a lot of access to a ton of different features that AirDNA has for free. For example, here I've got Pigeon Forge pulled up. I've got the market grade, I've got the average daily rate, the average occupancy rate, as well as the average revenue. Now, as we scroll down, we can also see that there's lots of different rentals, there's different rental sizes. We also get a lot of different information on where people are actually renting their listings, the rental growth, any amenities, Airbnb ratings, the rental activity, as well as any rental settings. Now, I recommend finding a rental market that's above 70. This means that there's enough demand to make sure that you can get bookings consistently. And a lot of people will say, oh, Alex, there's a lot of competition in that market. Now, I would much rather prefer a place where there's lots of demand and lots of competition, because I know that all that I have to do is make sure that my listing stands out. Now, one disclaimer about evaluating a market that I'm not gonna go into in this video is that you need to make sure that short-term rentals are even allowed within the market that you're looking for. So now we're ready for step 2, which is evaluating properties within that market. Now, I've actually already found a property that I'd like to use for this example. That doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to purchase this property, but I think it's a good example to show you my process. And the process that I'm about to show you, I basically repeat and repeat until I make the numbers work. Now, this is basically a cabin. It looks like we've got, 2 bedrooms, 3 baths. Pretty large cabin. It looks like we've got pretty good views here, a nice deck, and we've got a pretty nice inside. Maybe we could use a little bit of updating, but for the most part, it looks just fine. Now, when I'm evaluating these properties, the first thing that I'll do is I'll take this address and I'll go back to AirDNA and use what's called the rentalizer. So we can find the rentalizer by going down here and clicking rentalizer. We'll copy and paste that address here and click enter. Now, what AirDNA is going to do, it's going to show us what they think our annual revenue would be and our average daily rate, as well as our occupancy rate if we were to list it. I'm not saying that these numbers are set in stone, but it does give us something to base some of our calculations off of. Now, once we've gotten these numbers, we're gonna go back to AirDNA and find similar listings to this listing here. So we'll go back to the overview, and then we're gonna really zoom into the area where this cabin is located. Now, we've zoomed in into this neighborhood, and it looks like there's a bunch of different vacation rentals here, which is a good thing. So now remember, we want to compare this cabin to other cabins that are similar to it. So I've just highlighted 2-bedroom cabins here within this neighborhood. Now what I'm gonna do is we're gonna slowly start to open up a couple of these listings, and we're gonna dive a little bit deeper to see, what type of occupancy rates there are and try to find some good comps. So this would be one of those examples that I pull up. It's a fairly similar cabin. It's about the same size. I would say it's a little bit better decorated than ours is currently, but that's not to say that we can't improve on it. Now, the big piece of this that we're really focused on is that occupancy. Again, we're not paying to see all the occupancy rates. We have to do this in a little bit more of a manual manner. And the way to do this is just to check the availability on a lot of these listings. So if we come down to this listing, it looks like we're pretty booked within February. There's a couple of days in the middle of the week, but as we go through March, we've got a lot more bookings and less dates that are open. So the other thing that I want to check out is if I click on one of these dates, how much are they going to be charging me? So it looks like they're going to be charging me about $238 per night, and that's pretty comparable to what we saw AirDNA estimate we would get for a nightly rate. Now, I will do this analysis with a ton of properties just to make sure I can really understand the market, understand how much I can charge guests, what are those different amenities that my competitors are offering, and then making sure that when I list my listing, I have better photos, I have better amenities, and I'm ultimately going to give my guests a better experience. And now we get to step 3, which is running the numbers. So once I've done a little bit of this market analysis, now I'm gonna check out how much would I normally be paying for this particular cabin in order to purchase it. Now again, this cabin is $629,000, almost $630,000 for me to purchase it. Meaning that if I put 10% down, I'm gonna need $63,000 just for the down payment. We're also going to have a lot of other pieces to this that we want to include in that price estimate of how much we actually need in cash to purchase this property. So now we're gonna come over to my investment tracker and we're gonna fill in all of this information here. In my second video of how I purchased my first Airbnb, I show you how to fill this out. We're basically going to fill this out as the cost of property, the down payment, the estimated closing costs, any furnishings. I put this at $5,000 because my guess is we're gonna have to invest in some hot tub and probably some other features with this, as well as legal fees. So that means that our estimated cash to close is gonna be around $95,000. Now, once I've gotten these estimates for the cost, how much I'm going to be paying for the actual house, I like to do something what I call scenario planning. And scenario planning is basically exactly what it sounds like. I start running the numbers based on different scenarios. And this is super important because it's great to be optimistic and hope that we're going to be booked 100% of the time, but in reality, that's not always the case. So we need to make sure that we're prepared and have enough equity, or we have enough reserves, or we can charge enough. So if something changes within that market and I'm not able to be booked 80 or 90% of the time, I can still make this business profitable. Now, the way that I do this is I will go over here to this profit and loss per unit, and I've got my list price. Now, the list price is how much I'm going to charge every single night for my Airbnb. Now, the first scenario is exactly what AirDNA said that I could be making. And AirDNA said that I could be making around $225 per night with a 71% occupancy rate. So what I can see here is I've got my yearly expenses, I don't have any management fees, I've got my monthly payment, which is my mortgage payment, and then I've got my percentage to the investor. You can split this up if you have multiple people investing. But again, that's not where I'm really interested. Where I'm interested in is what are these numbers, those total payment to the investor monthly. So it looks like based on these numbers, I would be making about $777 each and every month if we're able to get that 71% occupancy and have people paying around $225 per night. Now, the other thing that I like to pay attention to is what is my cash on cash return? And what does that pay back in months? Now, really what I like to see is something over 30% cash on cash return. Now, based on these numbers, this might not be a great property, but I wanted to take you through all of the scenario planning that I do anyways. So the other scenarios that I like to run is what happens if I'm not able to charge $225? Let's say that I'm only able to charge $175 and I'm only able to get a 60% occupancy. And that's being very conservative, but I still want to run that scenario to see if things take a turn for the worst, am I still going to be okay? Now we'll come down here to that number and the answer to that would be no. So I might say, well, what if I'm able to get that up to 65% occupancy? Am I still gonna be okay? No, I'm not. Now, if I can get to being profitable, even if I only have 65% occupancy with a conservative list price, I know that this is a good deal. Now, the other thing that I like to do is what happens if I add some amenities that are really important to my guests. I add a hot tub, I get fantastic pictures, and I'm able to charge much more than that $225. Let's say that I'm able to charge $249 or $259 and get maybe a 75% occupancy rate. All of a sudden, my numbers have changed. So I'm making about $1,700 or $1,800 per month, and I'm getting a cash on cash return, which is more, closer to what I'm looking for, but not exactly. Now, I will continue to run these numbers just until I'm really comfortable. All right, and now we'll move to step 4, which is moving quickly and effectively. And what do I mean by moving quickly and effectively. A lot of people at this stage will develop analysis paralysis, and they'll lose the deal because of it. You need to remember that you're not the only one looking for these properties. There are other people who are also trying to find the same deals you are. Now that you've done your homework, you need to move quick. You need to contact your realtor, contact your lender, and make sure that you can get that property under contract. Again, even though you're under contract, that doesn't mean that you can't back out. Within those first few weeks as you're getting those inspections done, there is still a back out period for you to use if something comes up. Now I know that this was a lot, and this is probably going to be the longest video that I have on my channel, but I wanted to make this guide as complete as possible. And I'm sure that there are other things that I missed within each one of those different steps. If you caught anything that you think that I missed or that we should add to this guide and you want to make sure that everyone else knows, feel free to let me know in the comments. Now, if you ever want to talk about any of your deals or anything that you're seeing, feel free to let me know. I'm always interested in helping people get started with short-term rentals. And the easiest way to contact me is actually by finding my email in the About section. You go to the About section within my channel, you'll be able to see my email after you've proven you're not a robot. But before you go, check out this video. I think you're gonna like it.